Yeah. I hear
So, Pastor, so buried your daughter. How did you cope, or how are you coping? Because grief sometimes take a while. How did you handle that grief, knowing that she's your second daughter, right?
Yes.
That your second child is now gone, and the God that you trusted did not heal her.
This is the best way I know how to explain it. One day I was in the kitchen, and it wasn't a time when I was complaining to him, and because I had developed a position where I was like, well, I'll do ministry and I'll do what I'm supposed to do as a pastor and a preacher and a psalmist that travels and that kind of stuff. I'll serve the body. Because the truth is I was too full of pride to go back to what I was doing before, just secular music. And so I said to myself, okay, you know what, I'll just stick this thing out and we have to answer me one day, or explain to me why this is going to be okay, or give me some kind of sign to see her, make sure she's okay. I don't know, but some kind of reconciliation have to come from him. And I'm mad at him, not talking to him. So that one day, when I was just not even thinking about it, was a very good day. I was in the kitchen, and I heard his voice say to me, "What's grace?" And I said, "Grace." So I said, "Okay, grace. Grace is," and I said, he just started like, "Yeah, oh, you want to talk now? All right. Grace is undeserved favor." And he said to me, "You love my grace, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." And he said to me, "Who can give grace?" I said, "Only you." Then he said again, "But for me to give grace, I must be sovereign." He says, "Only a sovereign God can give grace, because grace is not challenged. Grace is not, who can argue with grace? And who can give grace unless they are at a place where they're sovereign?"
Mm.
So then he said to me, "You love my grace, but you don't love my sovereignty."
Mm.
And this is how he ended the conversation. So don't ask me about Zoe anymore. So don't question me about her again. Don't, in other words, just I didn't think he was saying to me that don't ever come to him about her.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, don't test his the why didn't you, why that kind of a, don't test my position. You can question my method, but don't question me.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, all right. So, to be quite honest, to answer your question about how am I dealing with the grief, I'm dealing with it, meaning I don't know if I'm at a place where I'm settled or I have it under management or I'm handling it well. I've gone through every kind of emotion you can think of. Mostly when you think about it, it's probably bitterness, probably some anger. That's not probably some anger.
Mm-hmm.
I've dealt with questioning my position in him. I've questioned his position and who he is to me. I sometimes even question if I was duped into coming into Christianity. And there have been times when I served the body of Christ and did my job and get paid, but I didn't believe a word of what I was singing or saying. I remember I have a song called Healing Me, which is my first real popular song that I did as a gospel artist. And for maybe a good 10 years, I did sing it. And as a lady in church one time at a concert said to me, she said, "Junior, why you don't sing that song anymore? Where's Healing Me?" And I was like, just laughing and going, "Oh, I didn't know you remember Healing Me," because people were blessed. The concert was off the chain. Everybody was jumping. What a great time. So in my mind, I didn't have to sing Healing Me. And she challenged me. She said, "Why don't you sing Healing Me anymore? and you have not sung it in a long time. I said, how you know that? She said, I've been to your concerts and I keep listening for that song and you don't sing it. And I'm like, well, I didn't want to tell her I don't believe he's a healer. So I'm dealing with all of that, and I'm dealing with learning how to trust and his sovereignty, this side of his sovereignty, like Job, that's a tough one.
But Trudy, I noticed that the tears are still flowing. What are you feeling?
I cry for him.
Explain that.
I think don't like to see him in pain. I went through my own process, which was completely different from his. Mine was more, okay, if this God is real, then we're gonna find out. So that was my stand. Before she died, the Lord spoke to me and said it won't be long. So I kind of knew about 3 or 4 days before that it was coming. And she started to lose her abilities, right? So she wasn't walking anymore, wasn't talking anymore. Pretty much bedridden at that point. And I remember saying like, well, I'm done. And just going back to the club and this don't make any sense. That kind of thing. And I just told her, the Holy Spirit just spoke to me and said, look at you going back to club. You have 5 kids you're going back to. And it was funny at the time. It's like in the middle of this moment, like me ranting, it was just funny. And I'm like, okay, God. So eventually she passed, but then I remembered just making this commitment early in my walk about going to church. Like, I'm not going to stop going to church. No matter what, I'm going to keep going. Because like I've always heard, sometimes the praises of other people will help you and strengthen you. And another believer might be there and their worship will encourage your worship. You hear all this thing, but never really been tested on it. And I was like, all right, we're going to see if this is real. So I just went to church anyway. The following weekend, after the funeral, I was just back in church. It's like, come, we're going. And we'd all just go. And I would just sit there and just press in and still try to worship. Still just raise my hands, sing, close my eyes. I love you, Lord. Worship. And I didn't know until recently that he was sitting beside me saying, you hypocrite. I didn't know, because he would be upset. And he would just sit there and just, not saying anything. But we were in a really big church. So nobody knew us and we could hide. But we just sat there and, I just kept just reaching out, praising God. And over the time, I think it did, I guess I came to the realization that it does work. And I remember even a few years ago, the Lord saying to me that the God that you want to curse and run from, he's the only one that can heal you. Only him. It's only him. Only he can heal. So I think that sometimes we run away from God, which would be the logical thing to do. Right? That makes sense.
Right.
But running to him, it doesn't make sense, but yet that is the formula to get healing and deliverance. So I just kept showing up. And, remember we did have 4 other children to take care of, so I was very busy, still being mommy and taking care of the home. So we weren't pastors, like senior pastors then. And I would say I leaned on him a lot. So it was hard because at least I had him to lean on. It was probably a little bit more difficult for him to lean on others, you would say. How would you describe that?
I just felt like, I think my discipline to the call is what kept me. And then it's like, it's funny, you can't get away from, it's like being in a building with a boss that you can go in there and work and dodge him every time, but then one of the days you get run into him at the water cooler or in the cafeteria, and you call the team office and say, where have you been? You know, because God's like that. After a while, you think you just can't get one like an employer and collect him your check without him calling them office and say, what's going on with you? I'm about to fire you. Tell me what's going on, and you have to face him. So for me, I think the commitment to the call and the commitment also to seeing people blessed was one of the reasons why I went to school and studied psychology, because I felt like, okay, I'm going to just dedicate myself now to helping people deal with this thing that I'm dealing with it. But then I am reminded that I personally have to make sure that I take care of me and deal with it. Because I think it's funny, where was at with the first, in the initial stage of worship and all that kind of stuff, I think for the past maybe 5 years, I have returned to that, or maybe maybe a bit longer than that, maybe since the last album.
We went
Yeah.
3 years after she passed. We moved back to Jamaica to plant a church. That don't make sense either, but just being obedient to the Lord. And I do remember saying to the Lord, how can I tell people you're a healer? You didn't heal her. Like, how am I going to go preach healing? And it did take me a while to pray. I would just avoid it. Pray for everything else. Come to healing, let somebody else pray. So I would just dodge. And it took me probably a few years to really start believing again that God is a healer. Maybe it didn't work the way I wanted it, but He can still heal somebody else, you know. And I realized that He deals with us individually. So, you know, that is just not my testimony, but it doesn't mean that it's not going to be yours, you know. So it took a while, I think, to fully process. But I think I held on, probably just to prove it.
So how did you deal with that? Just a little more about the grief, because I know that you still haven't completely absorbed that grief, for lack of a better way of saying it.
I think it constant. I think. I mean, he can prove me wrong, and I'll gladly receive it if he does, because the truth of the matter is, it's hard. So I'm guessing he would make it easier if he was to prove that I'm wrong. But I think you live. It's something that you travel with on your journey. It's like, because how do you not remember her? I mean, coming back to even like South Florida, right, where we are right now, just driving around, we see so many things that remind us of the very same Publix we used to go. Her favorite bookstore, or the school she went to, the park she used to play in, the McDonald's she used to eat at. You see it all. But my mom used to be in Sunrise, and it's like every time I drive to Sunrise, it's like you just go right back to with her. To be honest with you, I don't think I've really, just being honest, processed that part. In my mind, I'm like, okay, she was older man, our mom. So moms do pass away, and your fathers do pass away. So that's okay, but you don't have time to deal with that. Just deal with Zoe, because this is a crisis. These things don't happen. So you pick your fight and you pick your thing and you survive until you realize you can't survive on your own. It's not about survival, it's about overcoming. And
then not only don't happen, but they're not supposed to happen to people who are ministers.
Exactly.
But no, that don't happen to us.
Yeah, right.
Like we're sold out. We're pastors. We serve the Lord. We give up everything.
So nothing should happen to us.
No.
Yeah. Well, Pastor, in understanding, you said you don't think you have fully done the grief because they're memories. you're always gonna have that memory. But the grief can be gone, and now you're enjoying the memory of your child without having the anger with it. She's gone, but there's all these memories that you can embrace.
Right.
Rather than allowing the memories to be painful, you allow the memories to be what heals you, because now
Right.
you need the healing.
Right. But to be very honest with you, I hear you and I agree with you. I'm just not there yet, to be honest with you. It's been like we said about 15 years, because our son is 15 now. I have moments and times and seasons that I go through where I am, it's a good memory, I miss her, I think about her, all that stuff. Then another time when I go through and I'm angry. Then another time I go through and I have to be fighting depression, that he didn't give it to me, so therefore I know that's not of his spirit. So, but in my genuine walk and reintroducing myself to him again, it's like almost like you renew your relationship with him at all times and keep it going. Because I've also had to learn that there is ministry, and then there's my personal life. I knew that, when you go to school and Bible school, they teach you those kind of things. Like your mentors teach you that, your pastors teach you that, all that kind, but you hear it, but they still live it now. It's a different, the next thing. So I've literally had to learn how to, when I talk to people about the grief and counsel them and all that kind of stuff and walk with them, there's a personal thing that needs to be taken care of with me. So I'm not gonna lie to you and act like I have it mastered and I know what I'm doing. It's real, and I'm trying to navigate it as I go. And the only way I've learned how to navigate it is to navigate it with him and his presence and his power.
And I think that was what probably helped me because, or I would say gave me a bit of a head start, because I wasn't in public ministry. So I had those years before just being wife and mom. So I never had to, prepare a sermon or to take care of anything involving that kind of public ministry. But he had to keep going.
Right. So you had time to
So I
do
had
your
time.
grieving.
Right.
And he had to be doing ministry and showing another face.
Right.
Okay, I'm good. I got this together. But in the background, he was in pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think I cried for him.